Each day, more and more people are listening to music on Spotify, and that's also true for podcasts. Next time you're on the Spotify app, make sure to follow Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. Enjoy listening to Lou, his incredible guests, and all of the amazing episodes. Listen, follow, and share. Thrive Loud on Spotify.
In a court ruling U.S. versus Fishbein, a man subjected to potential incineration while wearing another man's suit is entitled to $10,000 worth of airline tickets. It's an obscure ruling, but a very important one. To Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
I don't need to teach you to be more like me. I need to teach you to be more like you.
Longtime listener and a huge fan.
Lou, I am tremendous.
And the more I'm plugged from technology and people, the more I can serve people with technology.
What you're standing for with connection, I think it's the key to everything.
You're just an amazing breath of fresh air for sure. Lou, you're a diamond in the rough, my man.
Because for me, if I'm not living high energy, I'm surviving and I want to be thriving.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have an author, sommelier, and a woman born and bred in the great state of Kentucky. She is the creative director and founder of the Vinum Collective and a wine writer for New York Magazine, a diploma graduate and instructor for the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. She wrote an amazing book titled Big Macs and Burgundy, Wine Pairings for the Real World. I'm getting thirsty and hungry already. Thrive Loud listeners, Vanessa Price. Vanessa, how are you today?
I am so great. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, so Thrive Loud listeners need to know this. Every once in a while, we do a Thrive Loud episode that's for me. One of those things, we get lots of people who come on the show, incredible entrepreneurs, leaders, business icons and incredibly famous people and whatnot. And I'm sitting one morning watching television with my wife, and there is this special piece about Vanessa on television and the launch of her book. And literally my wife steps up and she goes, "Oh, you got to go talk to her." And a little bit of navigating and magic. And Vanessa, I am so excited to have you here today. So thank you for coming on.
No, thank you. It was, I guess you're referring to this CBS special. Is that the one?
That is the one. Yes.
That is the one. Yeah, that was a wild ride of a day.
Well, what we found most interesting, which we'll talk about, is the woman who interviewed you on CBS, I think was pretty lit by the end of the session.
Yes, she was. She was. I don't think that she's used to, because they do segments and all sorts of things. Their sort of nexus is bringing these cool undiscovered books to the world. And I told her it was because we shot for 8 hours that day. It was an 8-hour shoot. It was a long day. And I had said to her, sip lightly, but I think she was really into the food and wine pairings. And so I didn't want to say, stop liking the food and wine pairing. But by the end of it, I think it was, we were a little saucy.
Yeah, she was definitely a lot redder by the end of the interview. So we'll leave it at that. So what I want to do for our listeners is do a little bit of a rewind because you have a very unique story. I don't want to go all the way to the womb, Vanessa, but I want to go back into when you got the bug for wine, because I make this comment that you come from a place where there's another alcoholic beverage that's probably much more prominent than wine, as I'm a big bourbon fan as well.
Land of bourbon, yes.
How did this thing become your thing? How did this become your gig?
Total accident. Couldn't have been further from something that was intended. I can be very bullheaded and sort of stubborn when it comes to certain things that I want to do. And I had previously been living in New York, gone to conservatory, convinced myself I was going to be a famous actress. My parents were the ones, with a little dose of reality saying, you need to get your bachelor's, move home and we'll help you out with tuition. Cause that whole in-state tuition thing. And I thought, all right, fine. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to blow through school and then I'm going to get back to New York so I can get back to being a famous actress. And so I did university in about 1 year and 3/4, I would say, because you got to count the summer semester. So we'll round it to 2 years. And in that time period, I just wanted a little bit of walking around cash. But when you're doing hardcore, 24-hour, 28-hour semesters, you don't have that much time. And there just happened to be a winery in downtown Louisville, Kentucky, because I went to the University of Louisville, or Louisville, as we say.
Yep.
And they were only open to the public 2 nights a week. So it was perfect for me, right? It was like all the time that I had. So I remember, I walked in and I met who became Dave, my amazing boss. And he sort of, eyed me up and down. He was a Virginia Slim smoking man. And, he sort of said, do you know anything about wine? And I said, no. And he said, well, can you work Friday and Saturday nights? And I said, yes. And he said, you're hired. And, it was literally just supposed to be to make a little walking around money while I was in school. And by the time I graduated, I had fallen in love with it. I didn't know that much about it, but the culture had sort of bitten me. I'd gotten the wine bug in the fullest extent and thought, all right, I'm going to go back to New York, but this time I'm going to go back and be a sommelier instead of going back to be an actress.
So being a sommelier, by the way, it takes a little bit of skill and a little game too. Were these things that you naturally picked up and combos that they just fit with you as a person, as an individual, the ability to pair these, to taste wines, to know the differences, to know what goes well, to learn about them?
Well, I had a long and bumpy road. When I moved back to New York, I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't know anything about wine. I didn't know anything about fine wine service. Didn't know I knew what a Michelin tire was. I did not know what a Michelin restaurant was. I literally, until my early 20s, I thought Parmesan cheese was the stuff that came in a craft shaker. I just had not been, it wasn't that we were living under a rock. It's just, that wasn't the type of culture that we grew up with. And so I, had a steep learning curve, and I was fortunate to have a number of different gigs throughout the years that, working in a wine bar to, working in events for wine with fine wine companies, to working as a sales rep, to, working as, for a very prestigious importer. And all along the way, you sort of pick up skills, and there was a lot of faking it till you make it moments. Yep. For sure. But, and a lot of education. I did go and do the formal, certification stuff, but it was certainly not an easy or straightforward path, to say the least.
So you just brought something up really interesting. And that was obviously, you thought Parmesan cheese was something that you'd shake in a can. Classic, by the way. And
it's true.
And most of the stuff that you're dealing with when you're dealing with fine dining is obviously a much more polished, prepared type of food. Did you ever, as you started to recognize that what went well with more traditional restaurant type food, did you start to lean in where would wine pair with other things? When did that happen?
Well, I guess it happened unconsciously pretty early on, just because, if you're going to say, hey, let's go to Le Bernardin for dinner, I'm buying, I'll be there yesterday. But if it's not that sort of situation, I'm a sucker for, great Indian takeout. I'm a sucker for great, food truck tacos. Like, that's sort of the world that I live in most of the time. And I love wine. So, subconsciously, I guess, that's something that sort of started a little bit earlier on, was just sort of thinking to myself like, oh, this delicious, amazing wine, like a Clos Rougeard, from the Loire, goes really well with these shrimp tacos sort of thing. And certainly I'm not the only one within the Somm community. I would say that most wine humans, they have their guilty pleasure everyday food and their fine wine that they pair with it. But it really became something more conscious, more deliberate, more formal in terms of structure when I had an opportunity to write a piece for New York Magazine. Okay. And it was just supposed to be a one-off. But it was Sour Patch Kids and Finger Lake semi-dry Riesling. It was for Halloween, and Sour Patch Kids are apparently the most popular Halloween candy in New York State.
Is that true?
So
really?
It's true. It's true. If you go to candy.com, they'll show you by state the most popular candy for that state.
Oh my goodness.
And for New York State, it's Sour Patch Kids, and we did a New York Riesling, and it was just supposed to be a one-off sort of fun, light piece. And it went bananas on the whole viral, click thing. And they asked for another, and before I knew it, it was a weekly thing. And people were asking about food and wine pairing. And I was like, I never meant to be this person, but here we are. I'm happy to be this person. That's for sure.
Before I go down some of the specifics of of your publication, which is awesome to talk about, I wanted to get the vibe from the others in the Somm community. And I say this because historically, the Somm community can be a little bit uppity. Is that the right word? Am I generalizing too much from those that are in those higher end restaurants and the ways that they're serving wines and what goes great and their passion for the vine?
I guess I'll say the barrier for entry is high.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
And I definitely spent the better part of my career on the outskirts. I was never one of the cool kids. There's within the industry, there's like the cliquey cool kids and everybody gets obsessed with them. I was never really a part of that pack. I did things like worked for big evil distributors and, not darling little small houses. And I definitely, didn't quite fit the mold. That being said, there were certainly members of that community that have always been warm and welcoming to me. There are others that have always been snots, and that's it is what it is. But I'm pretty sure that the arrogant type exists in any field. It's not exclusive to wine. So certainly in terms of since this book has come out, I have been overwhelmed by the number of chefs, restaurants, wine directors that have touted. I mean, Danielle Restaurant.
Oh man.
Instagrammed the book. I was like, what is happening in the world right now? What is actually happening? One of the greatest restaurants on planet Earth is Instagramming my silly little book. So certainly there have been an unexpected part of the community that has embraced it. And I would rather focus on that than the ones that have something mean to say. Because there's always somebody that has something mean to say,
See, Vanessa, that's why you're on Thrive Loud, because you totally get it. You're moving on. You're literally moving onward and upward in everything that you do. I love it. Okay, so Big Macs and Burgundy, which is the wine pairings for the real world. For those who haven't had a chance, we're going to provide all the links and everything to the book, so they'll get a chance to do it. And we'll give a section in the plug section. But I want to talk about putting this book together. Your initial vision of what it was, and then I'm going to ask about the research, which must have been so much fun. Did you have this big idea of the way that you wanted this book to go together?
Oh my gosh. I look back at those 2 years. So how about this? I had an incredible team. My co-write, Adam, who's also my upstairs neighbor in our tiny Nolita apartment building of 15 years. My best friend since second grade, Michelle, who was the photographer, co-creative with me. The elephant in the room, who did all of the illustrations, who I was paired with for New York Magazine. That's how we came to know one another. Truly, it took all of us. Hillary Clinton's whole adage, it takes a village. It's not just for babies of the wailing kind. It's babies of all form. I mean, it was just, and especially since, the first draft was done before COVID. It was done in the early fall of 2019. But by the time we got to the creative, to the shooting side of it, the design side of it, the final editing side of it, that was all done in COVID. And so trying to shoot in quarantine, FaceTiming, trying to, design and illustrate from afar. We never got physical galleys. Everything was digital proof. So you can imagine how terrifying it is to have never seen your book in physical print and then have it be done. And they're printing tens of thousands of copies and you've never even seen it. So it was definitely, a trying process, but in terms of the structure of it, I think it's something where it came out of, in the best way possible, a lot of arguments between my co-write and I. And
that's sometimes the best work, right? It's the discussion and the challenges that become the great content in a book like yours.
100%, because he knows nothing about wine, but he's a literary, wordsmith of the highest order. Whereas, I'm a decent writer. I'll say better than decent, but not great. And I know a lot about wine. And so we were just sort of this great balance of, he was constantly saying that's too complex. We got to, distill that down to something that's more digestible. And me saying, you're taking too many liberties with the facts here and we got to stay on track, and sort of, that constant push and pull between us. And I'm really proud of where we ended.
it's spectacular. The images are great, and kudos to your friend from second grade all the way through, because these pictures are spectacular. And I'll even add the combinations are great, and that's what I wanted to dive down to. You probably, I'm sure there were things that didn't make the cut, and lots of combinations. As you were putting together the combos of what was there, were there ones that didn't make the cut? Are there some that are on the cutting room floor? I think that's actually what I wanted to know.
Oh, for the food and wine pairings? Oh, there's
Yes.
so many. So the book has a little over 300 food and wine pairings, all unique wines. That was something that I was just hell bent on making happen. I never repeat a wine once, which also drove my co-write crazy. But we started, I think, somewhere, the first draft had about 500 food and wine pairings. So a little more than a third got cut.
In putting them together, I'm actually really curious in the relationships maybe with vineyards and wines, because there's so many, as you said, you had 300 varietals or whatever it might have been. Challenges or fun partnerships and maybe working with the different vineyards that are out there.
Oh my God. I wish the vineyards had worked with me. I had a team of 3 interns helping me. So, not only are there 300 different wines recommended, so you have to multiply that by 3, because in the book, what I do is I offer within, let's say the category is, Bourgogne Blanc, right? So then I offer a Bourgogne Blanc offering at under $25, a mid-tier range, and then if you're going to blow your budget sort of wine. So there's 3 wines per type of wine. So you got to multiply that. That's almost 1,000 individual wines. And for every single one of those, I needed to track down and confirm, are they organic or biodynamically farming? Are they vegan friendly? Are they sustainable? Are they, there was all the things. And so I had a team of 3 interns helping me to track down all of this information and making sure it was accurate. And, winery folks, they're farmers. They're not electronic people. And I think COVID gave them a reason to just never look at their emails.
It's true.
So it was a lot of follow-ups. It was a lot of follow-ups, but we got there in the end.
I'm going back to the spot on CBS when you got to feature some of those. The one that stuck out in my head was the peanut butter and jelly and I think it was sparkling red. If I'm correct, did I do that?
That is correct. Yeah.
I think, and that was what put your interviewer over the edge. Whether she had the PB&J or not, we have no idea, but she certainly enjoyed the bubbly. All those combinations and putting the stuff together. I love asking authors this question. So this is weird. I'm putting you in a different bucket here because you're a unique one. You could be proud of your work when you write something and, it's like birthing a child, like you just said, birthing a whale and bringing this in there. When you look back at some of these, are there any combos that you're extremely proud of or the overall product? From this experience in launching this book, what are you most proud of today?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I think what I'm most proud of, if I was going to pick a food and wine pairing, it would probably just be the Cheetos and the Sancerre, because that was the one that seemed to really just light everybody's pants on fire. I don't know what it was about that one, but people, it's funny. I do a lot of the Zoom speaking engagements right now, and people are like, "That's the Cheetos lady." I'm like, "That's the Cheetos lady." But I think overall what I'm most proud of, and this was really what I set out to do, was I've always felt like anything related to wine in terms of the text that is available, it largely fits into 2 categories. One is the wine haves, which is the people that know a ton about wine and understand wine on a very complex level. And, it's just, there's a rich fountain of information there, but it's very difficult to parse if you don't have a certain level of understanding. And then the other side is a lot of remedial stuff, sort of, presuming that there's just a base level of my reader is a dummy, and therefore I must speak to them as such. And I always hated that, right? It was I couldn't enjoy the dumbed down text, for lack of a better word, but I couldn't dig into the higher level text until I got through a lot of my certification. And so my aim with writing this book was to presume that my audience was smart. but they just didn't know that much about wine. And I think that that's a different tone. And it was really hard to constantly find that edge, that balance. But I am proud of the fact that I think we did that in the end.
I love that. I love asking guests on this show a fun question, Vanessa, and I'm really interested to see what this is. You're living your passion. You've even put it into print. You've paired your whole worlds together, and obviously you're on this whole big book tour, and you're thriving on most days. But like most individuals, we have days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders. Vanessa, when you have trouble thriving, what individual do you seek out or practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I do a couple things. One, I sit down and I play the piano for a minute. I'm a classically trained pianist, thanks to my grandmother, who's a very talented pianist. So I usually play for a minute. That'll clear my mind. My dog Luna, I'll take a break and play with her. She reminds me that there are things in the world that matter, and there's a lot of things that don't. So it's sort of like a reset on perspective. I would say in terms of advice, I seek out my father's advice a lot. He's had a very successful career in his own right, and he's a very fair, wise advice giver. So I try to take advantage of that as much as I can.
Love that. Let's do the admin part of the show here, Vanessa. Share with the listeners all the places they could connect to you, the Vinum Collective, Big Macs and Burgundy. We will put it all in the show notes, but it always gets more engagement when they hear it from you.
Sure. So my Instagram is at Vanessa Lenore Price, just my name, VANESSA LENORE PRICE. I am not cool enough to be on TikTok or Twitter, but maybe one of these days. In terms of where you can find the book, man, I got to say I'm bowled over, but you can find it just about anywhere. You could go to obviously Amazon or Barnes and Noble, Target, Urban Outfitters. It is widely distributed in independent bookstores, not just across the country, but across the globe. We have several distributors in the UK, Europe, Australia, Canada. It's pretty wild, man. You can find this book a lot of places.
Awesome. Vanessa, you ready to go down Fun Street here on Thrive Loud?
Oh, I love Fun Street. Where are we going?
Okay. First, we're going to start off with what your all-time favorite or one of your all-time favorite movies is. Do you have one?
Yes. Knives Out.
Oh, nice. I saw that recently. That movie is awesome. Why does that movie connect so much with you?
Well, who doesn't love Daniel Craig?
Good point.
But beyond that, I love that the mystery kept you biting until the end. I mean, literally until that knife drives into her, at the very end, you don't know what's about to happen. And so I think that there's a brilliance in that. And also, it was the last movie that my late sister saw and really loved and told me about before an unfortunate car accident that she had. And so I think it will always have a special place in my heart for that reason. She was a big movie buff.
Yeah. It's so sorry to hear that loss. Well, with that, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you, the first thing that comes to your mind, that comes to your mind that lifts you up, pumps you up, motivates you, makes you thrive. That's the first thing that comes in when I ask a question. You ready to roll? It's like a speed round.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Early in the morning for this. Let's go.
Okay. A song you love to hear or that pumps you up.
Let's go Up from Cardi B.
A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Rice. Rice is my favorite food on planet Earth.
Oh, a favorite dessert.
A classic chocolate chip cookie with a little sea salt.
Ooh.
Definitely soft and warm.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Seeing my friends and family.
Yeah. An activity you wish you did less of.
Zooms.
We are Zoom fatigued, aren't we?
We are so Zoom fatigued.
Vanessa, if I snap my fingers and you can be anywhere in the world, where are you?
I think I'm exactly where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, I like that. Okay, Vanessa, out of all of the pairings that you had to put together for Big Macs and Burgundy, which was your favorite combination?
Ooh, my personal favorite combination. I think I'm going to have to say the hot brown and Patagonia Pinot, just because hot brown, you got to bring a little bit of that Louisville food culture to the world.
I love it. Vanessa Price, Big Macs in Burgundy. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud today. This was a total fun. Check the box off. I got one of my people that I wanted on this program of late. I sometimes just get drowned with so many amazing people, but I get to get one that taps into wine and food that you get to eat every day. And thank you for bringing these pairings to the real world.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Head on over to Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe and listen to all of our incredible episodes. Follow Lou at Thrive Loud everywhere on social media, and head on over to thriveloud.com to connect directly to Lou and learn how you and your business can thrive loud too. Thanks for listening.